Hey everyone, this is Adam here. So I posted some unboxings of my 5930K as well as my motherboard, as well as my RAM. I'll put some links up so you guys could watch those if you want to. And a few people asked me to do some synthetic benchmarks once I got everything set up. I apologize, by the way, I have a cold, so if it sounds like my voice is really deep, that's why. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started and I'll show you what my system looks like. So here's actually a picture that I took about an hour ago. I was cleaning up all the boxes that it took me to put this thing together and cleaned it up. I only have one of those boxes left now, the rest are all in the garbage. But and I'll also go into some detailed specs of what I actually have. I just thought I'd show you a picture of everything. There's a few hard drive containers that aren't in this photo, but other than that, basically everything that's in this computer is in this photo. So if you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave a comment on the video below. So I won't leave this on for super long just because I know you guys can read. One thing I will note though is that I did upgrade the fans on my CPU cooler to the Noctua NF-A14 PWMs, and they're just wicked. Like compared to the, oh, I think it's JetFlow fans that come stock with that cooler, these Noctuas, they make no noise at all. Um, they never really have to go above 1,000 RPMs, but they can go all the way up to 1,500. Other than if you're running Prime 95, you're never going that high anyways. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, again, just leave a comment below and I will try to answer that as good as I can. Here's a video I just took so you can kind of see what it looks like when everything's running. That's actually a 200 millimeter side fan that I bought. It didn't come with the case. The one at the front did that you're seeing right there. I have the fan blowing out because of my two 780 Ti's. They produce a lot of heat. So I only have one fan that blows in. It's the one at the front. All the other ones are going out. Um, there's some wires in there I'm gonna fix up. It's kind of messy on there right there. Here's the CPU cooler itself. You can see the RAM. The radiator's up under there. I have fans on top that pull the air out. And just listen here how quiet these fans are. So I'm going to go, in my benchmarks today, I'm going to go over three different, I guess, scenarios or settings. The first one is going to be the stock settings. CPU is 3.5 gigahertz with turbo boost to 3.7 gigahertz. The base clock's at 100 megahertz with a multiplier of 35. RAM will run at 2133 megahertz at CAS 15 timings, and the V-core is set to auto. It's just stock settings. If you were to plug everything in out of the box and boot it up, this is what it would be at. The next setting I'm going to go over is the XMP profile, which is basically loaded from the RAM in your system BIOS, UEFI BIOS. What it does is it actually overclocks the base clock from 100 megahertz to 125, sets the multiplier to 30, which gives you an effective CPU clock speed of 3.75 gigahertz. Your RAM will be set to 3000 megahertz, which is what it says on the packaging for the particular set of RAM I got, and the V-core is again set to auto. The last setting I'm going to go over is my stable 4.5 gigahertz overclock, which is what I'm actually running it at now. It took me almost 3 full days to figure out that this was the highest I could go. Lots of trial and error, and I thought the XMP profile would actually be able to get up to 4.5 gigahertz with the RAM running at 3000 megahertz, but I could just not make that happen. So I'm going to talk about that a little later. But as you can see here, I have the RAM running at 2666 megahertz, and the V core is set to 1.38 volts, which is through trial and error what I got that it had to be. And yay, we finally got some benchmarks. No big surprises over here. As you can see, the Neptune 280L keeps everything quite cool at idle. There's no huge difference there. Obviously, when you're running your CPU at 4.5 gigahertz, as the overclock shows on top, and at 1.38 volts, it's going to generate quite a bit more heat than the stock one, but it's still well below, I think, what most people consider acceptable. I know a friend of mine, he during his Prime 95 test, it's Prime 95 I'm using, by the way, for the load scenarios here, and he goes up to like 85 degrees on his 4770K. So I'm quite happy with 72 degrees Celsius in a scenario that would likely never happen. Next up, we have the power draw. Some actually interesting results happen on this benchmarking. I don't know if you guys noticed the idle power draw for the XMP profile is actually higher than the overclock. That could be due to the fact that the RAM's running at a higher clock speed and requires more voltage to the RAM. I think it's 1.35 volts if you're running it at 3000 megahertz, whereas it only requires 1.2 when you're running it at 2666 or 2133. But yeah, it's definitely pretty surprising. Under load, it makes sense again when you're at 4.5 gigahertz and you have 1.38 volts going to your CPU. It's going to draw quite a bit more power than the other two scenarios, almost double than stock, actually, looking at that. So this is a run of SuperPi, which I know you're going to say, why would you run this? It's a single-threaded test. Obviously, the one with the highest clock speed is going to be the fastest. Well, that's actually not what I found. Again, with this XMP profile, I don't know if it's due to drivers on the motherboard or just I'm not sure what it is, but it actually ran slower, even though it was at a higher clock speed than stock. It took about 2 seconds longer to run the 4 million digits of pi test on the XMP profile, which was very surprising. Obviously, the overclock was faster than those other two scenarios, but very interesting that the XMP profile actually lagged behind the stock. Here's a good multi-threaded test. The 5930K is a 6-core or 12-thread CPU, so obviously tests like Cinebench is something you'd expect it to excel at. As you can see here, once you overclock it, you're getting basically almost a third better performance going from 3.5 to 4.5, which, I mean, if you look at those two numbers, it's probably the same ratio. But again, we notice that the XMP profile is lagging behind stock, which you think with faster RAM and with the slightly faster clock speed, it should be faster. It should have a higher score, but it does not. Again, don't know if this is an issue with motherboard drivers or what it is. Here I ran the IDA64 CPU Queen test, again, which just essentially tests your CPU. And here, the results are a little more expected. We actually had the stock at the bottom, the XMP slightly above that one, and the overclock way far up and above the two other ones, which is expected. This was actually probably the most expected test results out of all the ones that I got. So since I actually do have three different profiles here, each running at a different memory clock speed, the stock at 2133, XMP at 3000, the overclock at 2666, I figure I'd run some read-write bandwidth tests on it, again using AIDA64. And again here, the results I guess are expected. It looks like the read speed on all of them are basically within margin of error. There's not a big difference on the read speed. The big difference is the write speed. Obviously, 3000 megahertz, you'd expect that to have the highest bandwidth. It's almost at 51 gigabytes a second. Second place, 2666 at 49.55. And obviously, the 2133 is the slowest at 44.9, basically, gigabytes a second. And here's another test of memory bandwidth. I know lots of people like Sysoft Sandra, so I use that program to test the three different memory bandwidths. And again, the result is kind of expected. Obviously, 3000 megahertz RAM is faster than the other two, but it doesn't look like you're getting a huge gain over the 2666. Whereas going from 2133 to 2666, you're getting almost a 3 gigabyte a second gain. So um, I don't think you gain very much going up to 3000 megahertz. So just in case I boarded the crap out of you, don't know if that's word, bored the crap out of you guys. I'm just gonna, I got Alien Isolation last night, so I'll just kind of play you me walking around in that and kind of go over some of the takeaways I found from overclocking my 5930K. Um, XMP Profile does not overclock at all. Basically, if you try to do anything above that 3.75, I had crashes. I couldn't get it working at all. It wouldn't boot up. I tried every single situation. There was one situation I was able to get it to 4.5 at 3000 megahertz, but what happened is that whenever I ran a stress test or anything like that, it would crash. So if I didn't run a stress test, it would be okay. And it was weird because I was running it at like 1.29 volts, so which is a really low voltage, but it booted up at that. But when I tried to, raise it even to 1.3 volts, the computer wouldn't even boot up. So I think, I don't know if it's instability with the RAM kit, the DDR4, the XMP profile itself, or just the current motherboard drivers. It's Yeah, it's definitely a mystery to me why it was so unstable. Anyway, let me know how you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and enjoy the rest of this video. I guess I intentionally wanted to go see if I could find the alien and let it kill me, so you're going to see that happen. Enjoy.
The security system has shut a number of doors, so you'll need to gather equipment en route. Mother isn't really helping the situation, unfortunately. Good luck. I'm closing the hatch behind you.
Sure.